the three stooges of Finnish biohacking.
Yeah,
Very happy to have you here.
We were actually thinking coming, naked on stage after that talk, and I feel
no underwear.
I feel a little bit shame because I have a compression shirt right now. But I have a reason
I'm convinced.
for it.
But you're all wearing
trousers.
underwear.
You have a compression shirt here? What?
Here.
Cool. So I think you're beautifully dressed in different colors. I'm sure they represent something very intelligent. I'll let you do your show. Guys, you're in for a treat. Thank you.
Very cool. Thank you. So today we're going to be biohacking physical exercise.
Yes, we're gonna be exorcists.
Exercising. Yeah. So we're the authors of the Biohackers Handbook. How many of you have heard about this book before? Nice.
Great.
We're doing some good marketing here in a way. So this book really dives deep into the different areas that you can practically biohack in your life today: sleep, exercise, nutrition, mind, and work. And we can probably agree that, if you don't sleep enough, if you don't eat a proper diet, if you don't exercise, it's not going to show up as improvements in your cognitive function and eventually in the work that you do. So today we're going to focus on one of the key building blocks, which is exercise. And life is movement, right?
Yeah, and the Plato already find out that movement is medicine. So just like food is medicine, movement is also medicine. He found out also that food without the movement, it's not as effective as combined. So that's why you have to exercise. That's normal to move. When you look at a child, my child, she moves all the time, even though when she's sleeping.
Yeah, I remember almost a decade ago, I was geeking out into nutritional side of things, how you can affect your hormones and neurotransmitters and stuff like that. And then I read another book because I was really going deep with the nutritional side. And then just okay, crap, exercise, the effects for your hormonal system and all that, they're at another level. So it's always good to keep in mind that even though we like to go deep in certain aspects, just the whole picture.
Yeah. And that's the whole picture of health, really. Exercise, fitness. And when you think of just exercise itself, you're actually causing damage to a muscle. And then there's a recovery period. And that creates it's kind of like a hormetic stressor that makes you more resilient, more capable of doing that kind of physical work in the future. But it also trains your immune system and your cardiovascular system, respiration, all aspects, lymphatic system, the heart, the whole body, pretty much. And if you don't do it, if you don't exercise, if you don't produce that damage, that oxidative damage that exercise brings, you're not going to be as resilient.
Yeah, I would consider, I wouldn't use the word exercise. That has have to perform at something. I would call it a movement or play. You put on the next slide. So we need to play more. We need to just move for the sake of moving because it's fun. I like to move here. If I'm standing 45 minutes giving this lecture, my brain wouldn't work that well. I wouldn't have any fun. So movement is life.
So Italians are more intelligent.
Yes, they're really intelligent. I don't know if there are any Italians here, but.
And I think it's good to understand that, of course, movement is language. It reflects what we carry with us. So, for example, I think Ido Portal is pretty famous right now, popularizing the idea of movement and freedom. So if you're not comfortable with, for example, moving backwards, that's a dimension that you don't own. So your brain is not capable, or the neuroplasticity towards certain directions, you don't have that. So in a way, I think it's really important to start to think about movement more in a way that how we teach our brain more freedom, more possibilities. And of course, we see this in sciences with Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, dancing, whatever, that we train our nervous system to just more complexity.
Yeah, so if you think about it, you only move unilateral. So you only have this movement direction or this. Nothing in this, or not even speaking about a 3D, 4D movement. That's how you perceive the world. that's how you can develop your brain to be more like living and the conceptual understanding is much better.
More fluid.
Yeah.
This guy, Stephen Jepson, he likes to play, and there's cool videos on YouTube about how he does, all kinds of acrobatic things on his backyard. He built himself all these kids' playgrounds, basically. It's an adult's playground. And he said that, when you stop playing, that's when the cognitive decline starts. And it's important for all of us not to think of exercise as something that it means that you go to the gym, but it's something that you do all the time. So you should create maybe some kind of cues in your daily cycle where, for example, every time you go for the toilet or every time you walk to the kitchen or you open the car door, whatever it is, all these cues, you attach some movement in it where you do a push-up or a pull-up or a squat. And one thing to start from is meetings. So when you have all these office meetings, you can have more walking meetings. Every time you speak on the phone, go around and walk around. I remember Vessi actually said that when he's speaking in the phone, he's doing kettlebell swings. I wouldn't be surprised. So greasing the groove is kind of this idea of kind of working with it and accumulating throughout the day a little bit of movement. And that's natural movement. I mean, we have kind of lost in city environments that we don't really play that much anymore. We don't kind of run up trees and we don't have to balance ourselves as easily. We have shoes invented that even make that a bit difficult also to kind of exercise certain parts of the feet.
There's actually a guy, good friend of mine, also named Jaakko, is introducing these natural movement camps. So it's very, very fun to be a few days in the camp and just climb, and not maybe that extreme like in there, which by the way is Erwan Lacor, but there's something I do back at home. So I chop wood, I lift heavy objects, and Jaakko is more in the
What is Jaakko, the story of the middle picture?
I think what came to my mind is actually we've been in the Amazon for a few times, and this trip, this expedition that we needed to move some trees from the river that we were going to the places that literally no white person have ever been. So we were really far out at the Las Piedras River. But the point being, the indigenous people that we met, one of the first things they looked is how big is your feet, like how wide they are. And what we do with shoes, similar things that Vessi was describing, we just constrict it. And it was interesting to kind of see that that's the marker of manhood, like how wide your feet are, how much movement you've been doing with your body. So
let me share another sort of Amazonian experience I had when I went there and met some of the tribes, was that I was following an old lady, like probably in her 80s or something, and very small. And she was like almost like flying through the uneven terrain and all the roots and everything that's going on in the rocks, and it's quite wet in the rainforest. And she did it so effortlessly, and I was coming behind her like seriously, like, having difficulty with that activity. And that's when I realized kind of like how you become also more energy efficient in movement once you practice it every day.
And you practice your proprioception. There are a lot of like nerves underneath the feet, so you can actually train them. It's good for your balance. So go barefoot every time you can. I even do it in the winter time, but especially in the summer, springtime. My experience was when I gave up of these normal shoes, my leg widened maybe 1 centimeter. So that's an experience especially if you have a very tight shoes.
What is the story, by the way, behind this
Just one point
picture?
for that. Next time you're walking on a rocky surface or so, try to not constrict your feet because that hurts more. Try to relax your feet. It's much easier. That's, again, the effectiveness of how do you use your body. But relax. It's easier.
By the way, the same applies for cold exposure. So when it gets cold, people kind of tense up, but it's actually much easier if you just loosen up. Try to, put a fist and put that into cold water and then just like relax it and try it again. It's a totally different experience. So you have a child here, right?
Yeah, there's my child. She can actually jump on the rebounder. She's a little over 1 year old.
Isn't that the risk for, biggest risk for skull fracture?
Yeah, with the bigger rebounders. But that small rebounder device is actually very good. For example, in the morning when you wake up, you can wake up your lymphatic system. So I usually go and jump like 100 jumps there and get some fresh air. So that's a good start for the day. But also you can do like serious exercise with that. But it's basically it's fun.
Yeah.
It doubles up the oxygen intake compared to running on its own. So, well, anyway, if we put all these kind of studies and all the stuff behind exercise into one chart, we see its immune system function and benefits definitely for cognitive function, for neurogenesis. So you get the increase of brain-derived neurotrophic factors, and all of those are kind of another good reason to keep on moving. And when it comes to elderly, this is super important. The moment when they stop moving and they kind of stay at home or they get bed sick, that could be the end of them. It's really important to get them moving, to keep their minds also moving.
Yeah.
So with that, our book actually dives into exercise as not something that, let's build large muscles or do crazy feats, but it's really about the health aspect of it. And we want to go to a few methods and few kind of okay.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello.
Hello. Who's there? Anatomy and physiology.
So basically every chapter of our book is having a section of anatomy and physiology, because when you know the basics, it's easier to do something to improve it. For example, heart function. So here you can see how the blood pressure fluctuates when the heart pumps, when it relaxes, and so you can see like the blood pressure. So like normal, very good blood pressure would be like 110/60. So that's like the blood pressure of an Aboriginal. But you can measure these things by different devices. If you put the next slide, there are good blood pressure devices, pulse oxidometers, heart rate, and heart rate variability devices. So those are available for everybody at the moment.
Yeah, and if you do exercise, then you can use heart rate zones and practicing in aerobic or anaerobic zones and so on.
So heart is in the middle of the body, and I would say it's the center. It's not the brain, it's the heart in every way, in physical way, in emotional way. But what you can do about it is how you get most effective way of pumping blood into your system. So here are a few examples. The nervous system, the condition of the nervous system, hormones, your fitness level affect the heart rate. But then there are things that you're gonna affect with your pumping efficiency. It's the heart size, you can exercise that, and also how reflective your heart is. So that way you get this cardiac output. That's very simplified of this matter.
Yeah. So here we go into a little bit more detail in terms of what kind of activities increase heart rate and cardiac contractibility, and which ones are kind of decreasing it. But it's kind of important to understand that the heart is doing mechanical work in addition to doing electrical work. And the mechanical work actually is in the root of our lifespans. So why do we live like, even if we do everything correct in biohacking terms, 120 years old is basically, for most of us, the limit. And the limit comes, for example, from the aorta. It actually kind of it lengthens just like a rubber band as you age, and it stiffens. And from that, what happens, you lose pressure in microveins. And the first organs to get a hit from that are the kidneys and the brain. So that's why neurogenetic diseases, kidney failure, etc. And you can see in older elderly people, you can see in their hands, just like problems with veins and so on. So this pressure problem is in the root of, and when they try to, put a machine in to replace the heart, you can't do a surgical procedure that would still kind of maintain the even surface there. at least with current technology. And because you have the scar tissue, when you have this waveform that basically the heart sends through the arteries, and it hits any kind of like scar tissue, you lose some of it, see? So that's why people who get a heart replacement as a pump that's kind of machine, they live only 6 years because they lose pressure throughout the body. So it's important to exercise and train all these aspects, obviously, but the heart, drinking a lot of coffee, exercising a lot, etc., is also one of the kind of systems that you could say it has an expiration date the more you use it. So it's important to also focus on recovery. And as much as you can pump up the heart rate, you also find the ways to recover. And that's what the Zen monks and long-term martial artists and meditators have discovered. Through exercise, you can train the body, but you also have to train relaxation.
Okay, so we have systemic circulation. Let's go pretty fast through this. As you can see, there are pretty large and wide arteries and veins in the genital area, which was the previous talk. So that's like the main point. It goes into your lower extremes. So if it's compressed, it's not that effective. Also, same thing with the lymphatic system. So what the scientists recently found out that there's actually lymphatic system in the brain, which they haven't found out yet. So it's considering the whole body, but you need to also move your lymphatic system. So what would be the best movement for lymphatic system, Jaakko?
Yeah, I think rebounder for micro breaks during the day is a very good idea because lymphatic system doesn't have a pump in the same way as circulation has. So I just think that vibration plate or rebounding during those micro breaks is an excellent idea.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And when we look at I talked a little bit about the pressure. So the microcirculation is really kind of one of the elements that keeps that pressure even throughout the body, and that's where the exchange of nutrients happen in tissues.
All right, let's go into breathing. So everybody needs to breathe. So the slower we breathe, the longer we live. That might be the case. For example, in the case of big animals like whales, they breathe only like 3 to 5 times per minute, and they live a very long time. For example, in the other side are mouses who breathe like very fast, and they live only like, I don't know how many years, a few years.
Yeah. The way to take control of your heart rate also and heart rate variability is through breathing. So that's the kind of only part of the autonomous nervous system that you have control over. So through breathing, you can influence these kind of almost subconscious things.
Let's do an exercise. So we do the box breathing. Is anybody aware of the box breathing? So we breathe in 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds, breathe 4 seconds out, and then hold for another 4 seconds.
Let's do one cycle.
Yeah. So. All right, you can continue as you put the next slide. We can.
How do you feel, by the way? Who feels slightly better?
Even with one breath.
Yeah, one breath.
That's amazing.
By the way, at Google, they practice one breath before meetings and so on. So it's part of corporate life.
So you can train if you can continue with the box breathing. You can train actually your respiratory capacity with this. So with inhalation, you can actually train that capacity to get more air into your lungs, and then hold it there, and then exhale and push it like really empty. So you can that way train your expiratory reserve volume. And when you train these both aspects, you can train your total lung volume and the functional capacity.
A lot of people, they don't breathe fully, and even just like emptying their lungs completely doesn't happen. So there's a lot of stale air there. And when you bring those all back to physical function and physical movement, it's super important for, just like effective use of your muscles.
And I think the classical metaphor as mind being the kite and our breathing being the thread that controls the mind or the kite is pretty profound. because whenever too cold or whatever, we come more into our bodies, into breathing. We get more resolution to what's happening in our mind.
Yeah.
And that's profound.
Think about how many do cold showers, morning, evening? Well, that's a lot. So the first time you tried it, you were probably like this, but
Can you do it again?
like monkey. Well, but you get accustomed to that. So the next time you're okay, it's a little bit cold, and the next time you're like, okay, this is now in better control, and you can actually practice your breathing and presence in the cold shower.
That's for sure.
Right. So let's hack some muscles. So muscle fibers, cells, there are basically like two basic types: slow twitch muscle fibers, which are good for endurance, and then there are like fast twitch for strength and explosiveness. Fast twitch are like 2A, 2X, and then some other subtypes. But basically, that's genetically manipulated, not manipulated, but inherited. Yeah, that's the word. Genetically inherited from your parents. So you might have like a certain amount of slow muscle cells, and the other person might have more of like fast muscle cells. And you have this genetic mutation of the ACTN3 gene. I don't know if anybody has measured that. A few geeks here. So what are your results on that? Any mutation? Huh? Sprinting, yeah, you look like that too. Oh. Yeah, it's compliment. Yes, totally. Yeah.
So you can train these, different muscle fibers by different types of exercise, and also actually, even though you're genetically programmed for something to have a benefit from, this can be also changed through stem cell therapies and all these kind of emerging things. But you can definitely see by looking at people like what they do and what they've developed in. So probably a gym rat like you is not gonna run very fast, I guess.
I run pretty fast, but not very long. So I'm not the endurance type.
So let's talk about energy systems a little bit. So what's going on with your mitochondria?
Yeah. So this is like if you need one picture to understand your energy system in the cell, this would be it. So I don't know if
lots of lines.
Yeah, lots of lines. But this is basically cellular respiration in mitochondria, where you get energy from food and how you process into electrons and basically movement. We go pretty deep into this subject in the book, but
and also how to hack with nutrition.
Yeah,
all these cycles that are going on there.
Basically, the mitochondria is the energy system. It's like the basic energy pump in every cell. So you need to take care of your mitochondria.
Pump some ATP, and that's kind of key.
Yeah. So what about Jaakko? You have been like quite a pro sports, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, won many Finnish championships, and you have a pretty fast muscle fibers. And what kind of type? If you think about the energy systems, it's aerobic, anaerobic 1, and anaerobic 2. For example, in your sport.
Yeah, I think the point is that people need to understand that, for example, for aerobic systems to actually start giving a good base, you need to do a lot of it.
Yes.
And this is one of those things that, well, both of my parents are PEs and I've been doing that for most of my life. And then you can build much better foundation for most of these. So I think that in this phase, we kind of overlook the aerobic exercises and just want to go, because of course it's very important, increasingly, especially for older people, to do weightlifting and all that. But to actually have a good foundation, I think we kind of overlook just running and skiing and stuff like that. But that being said, I think, after that you can make these limits much more wide. So I think my experience being that now, after years of training much less, I can feel pretty much immediately how much more, what's the word?
Reserve?
It's not as wide, those ranges of just performing, because the anaerobic phase kicks in pretty rapidly.
Well, the key point of the slide was that you can train your different energy systems.
Yes.
You can train how you produce power with ATP and creatine phosphate. You can train your lactic acid tolerance. You can train your aerobic system. So the aerobic system, like the low-level activity, that's the basis of all movement. So you have to train that.
Yeah, and some people, they get a bit biased about what they do. Either it's yoga or it's heavy lifting and so on. But it's actually just from looking at what we are made out of. It's good to develop all different areas, also flexibility and movement in general, agility, coordination, and you can do all of that stuff in a Biohacker's gym, for example, obviously, and you have some cool tools there that you can deal with. But it's not a tool sport. What did we have before gyms? We had nature, and that's the natural movement. Often people think that I have to go to the gym to do a lot of heavy body work, but actually just looking at bodyweight exercises and the benefits that you can get from things like 7-minute workout for this building this aerobic capacity is pretty profound.
Yeah, and you can combine some muscle training with elevating your heart rate. This 11 movements, the so-called 7-minute workout, it's actually pretty effective, and it's also training for different kinds of movement.
And there's a bunch of apps for it. And I don't know if we brought any kettlebells.
No,
here.
we forgot that. We were supposed to get one kettlebell here and do 20 swings here, but how many does kettlebell swings every now and then?
Cool.
How many of you have it in the office? A few? That's great, because that's a perfect movement to do some basic swings, the whole body movement, and it gets your brain again back on track. So
just imagine Bessie on his chair, the kettlebell swings with a phone.
Swinging with the,
That would be probably the kind of one thing to go if you want to kind of hack what's the silver bullet. Just get a kettlebell and get your body going, because it activates the whole body so nicely.
Yeah.
So
also, kettlebell snatch is there's so-called Secret Service snatch test. Anybody have heard of that? Well, it's a 10-minute AMRAP of 24 or 12 kilo kettlebells, 24 for men and 12 for women. And if you go over 200 repetitions, you get into the Secret Service. I tried that a few times. I raised my hand, but I got into 184, I think, so I wouldn't be an agent.
Yeah. I like to do a lot of isometric training, and that's what I sort of just combine into my daily routine of working at the office long hours and doing all that work. So, just like doing some planks or just like isometric holds in different ways is super effective. And you can actually boost them up a little bit by adding a little bit of vibration into it. So just like try to do a plank on a vibration plate. It's almost like doing 100 push-ups in a minute.
Yeah, you can actually do this quasi-isometric push-up with the handles on a vibration plate. So basically means that you do a 1-minute push-up, and it's vibrating like crazy, and you lower it very, very slowly. And when you reach this position, then hold it as long as you can. After this one movement, you're like,
it's only one movement.
Yeah, and if you do it a few times, the metabolic effect it's amazing.
Yeah. If you have any kind of physical ailments or problems with joints and so on, that's where you might want to consider also electrical muscle stimulation. It's also very good for recovery if you want to work on a computer and still do the kind of activation that would help to pump out the lactic acid. But
Teemu is often in the office.
Yeah, like that. Sounds like that on the phone also. So looking at the studies, that's not necessarily the, I don't know if you have TV shop and, this Adtronics.
Six-pack in 6 minutes.
Yeah, but, it's not really that good for it, but it's good for keeping up with muscle mass, so you don't get any loss if you get injured or whatever, just using this might help to keep up with that,
or
work
muscle
that you've done.
imbalances.
Yeah. I've corrected some muscle imbalances with electrostimulation, and actually combining that with dynamic movements, physical movements like squat is extremely effective. That's really cool. So looking at the measuring thing, what would be only the one thing that you would measure? Well,
you revealed already, but it would be in strength-wise and longevity-wise would be your grip strength. How many have you tried what's your max grips and any results? If you want to say 55, okay. Any more? That's pretty good.
78.
Whoa, kilos, really?
Yeah.
Shit, okay.
Here in Stockholm is Tekniska Museet, and there is children area where is that compression testing possibility for both hands together, and there is about 82, 78, that kind of.
Yeah, something for adults also.
Yes.
So it was about. Okay, my husband got 120, but.
Okay, but it's different metrics, but that doesn't, necessarily. It's very good result. Yeah.
But when it comes to, you can think of it almost like when you are sending a signal from the brain. It's almost like a speaker when you have an audio signal going into it. So when you you can try just like. Make a fist. Don't squeeze a lot yet, but start squeezing a little bit. Can you feel how your muscles are activating throughout the whole?
Yeah.
And
when you squeeze it,
you lower the pressure.
Actually, a whole body.
So that's why it's super effective for the whole body, and that's why also like squats are extremely effective for the whole body.
There are like captains of crush. You can practice those, and I used to do this like 2 months every day when I went to the sauna. So I did like this, and my grip strength improved a lot. So it was easier to do pull-ups and deadlifts and stuff like that, and carry like groceries and.
So it's a good brand that if you want to kind of measure your progression, climbers and people like that use those a lot. And just a little hack if you're doing pull-ups or whatever, just see the effect if you grip harder, how much more you can do because it activates the nervous system and all that.
Yeah.
Now, looking at like individual differences, you can look at your genes. Here's some results from taking my 23andMe data, uploading it to a UK-based company, DNA Fit, and this is what it produces. It's kind of like gives you some idea of injury risk and recovery profile. And I'm more likely to be Usain Bolt than marathoner. So that's kind of what I'm working with. So I have very high injury risk, but I probably recover very fast. I'm good at that. So you might want to take these things into account also when it comes to kind of choosing what's your favorite sport. Looking at the sensors, different sensors that you can, track. A lot of them are related to health, fitness. Basically, you have movement trackers, you have heart rate monitors, and sleep trackers are pretty much like using those sensitive sensors for recognizing small micro movements during nighttime, like breathing and respiration and movement. And these things are getting in surprisingly small. Surprisingly small. So this Oura Ring is pretty incredible in terms that it can measure body temperature fluctuation. It can also look at nervous system, the heart rate variability through sleep,
and respiration.
What I also like, it's also measuring not steps only, but sitting, how much I sit, which is more important.
And overall movement, like if you move every hour. So it's like the metrics is amazing, and you can just. This is a lot more accurate than any wristband, and also the sleep paragraphs and measurements. It's compared to like sleep polygraphs, it's 90% accuracy.
Yeah, it has been independently analyzed by a research group how it's possible to use something like this compared to a heart rate monitor. But what is kind of key here is also what kind of coaching it can do. So the coaching aspect is interesting. On Monday, I was flying from Frankfurt to Orlando, and I was giving the world's first keynote on an airplane. And it was about travel biohacks to a group of people who were flying to a conference called Sapphire Now, SAP's largest conference in Orlando. And I spoke about these things, and I slept there one night, and I flew directly here to do this conference. And Aura has been with me all the time telling me about my readiness. And I've definitely seen like how air travel affects resting heart rate and the stress of going through so many time spans. And
so maybe you put the next slide. I want to just show, and the next one.
This one.
Yeah. So that one. So I'm actually measuring my 3-day constant recovery and heart rate variability. That's first beat. It's also upstairs. This is like my go-to with my patients. If I want to see how stressed they are, I would say that they need to do the first beat analysis.
Yeah, we had some, Hanne Sjöblad examples in the morning, but for those who were not there, here are some of my own data. So, just like a typical work week, you don't get a lot of recovery even throughout the night if you're just like spending a lot of time in sympathetic nervous system overactivated state. This is 1 week where I was doing a conference, and you can see the reserves, body resources really declining. This is how it should look like. So you get recovery throughout the day, and all those green parts are where I did deep breathing exercises that we did in the beginning of the talk. Those are super important tools to use in combination with the work that you do that activates sympathetic nervous system, but also physical exercise. So learning to use your breathing to bring up that parasympathetic nervous system activation and get yourself to rest is super crucial. And when you do that throughout the day, you fall asleep much faster. It's less breaks you get throughout the night and restless movement, and that's really important.
Yeah, let's go next slide because we need to probably go. So my go-to hacks for recovery are sauna or infrared sauna and cold plunges or cold showers.
Yeah.
2 most important things.
Absolutely.
And then
for the activation
Jaakko,
of the parasympathetic nervous system.
I think one of the things when it comes to recovery, nervous system recovery, I've been tracking this for several years now, and ice swimming is one of the most clear things that I can see in the data that affects that, and that's pretty much the way it goes. I think for the past few years I've been pretty much swimming every day in natural waters, whether it was summer or winter, but that's been a huge thing.
Yeah, and when you look at the brain, we start from the brain and brain health. Different forms of physical exercise develop different parts of the brain, and that's kind of significant and interesting. And it's important to practice also like balance and movement and all those things. And it turns out that the world's most intelligent people, like Einstein's brains, they've studied those, and what they realized is that the violin play or the dance that they practice from a young age, all of those actually factor into their intelligence, their capability of using their brains fully. Just to conclude, we start from exercise, we talk about fitness, but in the end, to do that properly, you have to also do recovery properly, and you have to do it in a kind of thorough way, and not just focus on one aspect of fitness, but kind of get the whole picture together.
Yes, and it's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Go upgrade yourself.
Thanks.